This week I'm trying my best to finish the shed around the boat. It's like 3 times bigger than the original shed was, bigger than that. And so it's a pretty big project. And we're going to be covering the boat. And so we figured before the boat gets covered, we wanted to give it a good scrub and step back and give you guys a boat tour of everything that's been accomplished over the past winter. My name is Matt. Follow along as I turn Duracell, the legendary ocean racing sailboat, into a comfortable cruising home. At the beginning of the week, I made the remaining 14 legs for 7 frames, and I am using 22 legs total to completely cover and enclose the boat. For those 22 legs, I needed 44 1x4s that are 20 feet long, but I knew I would break a few bending them into shape, so I bought 60 of them. This ended up being the perfect amount. I broke probably 6 or 8, and the rest were so full of knots it was obvious they wouldn't work. Those that I didn't use in the frames will get used later as the diagonal supports. Once I had all 14 beams made, I put them up, which involved some futzing, and admittedly, I dropped a few of the beams, though I didn't catch it on camera. It's been a lesson in patience. Again, this kind of construction is not something I'm comfortable with, but I'm definitely learning a lot. I did have to rope in Yanni here and there to hold up a frame for me while I zipped it into place. Yanni's uncle Larry helped me get up the most aft 2 beams that are over the transom of the boat. These were extra difficult because the cockpit sole is lower than the foredeck, so the height of the ridgeboard is about 4 feet higher than the rest of the boat. So having Larry there to help made it a lot easier and faster. Beautiful. It's not going anywhere.
Hi, Uncle Larry.
Hey, great project.
Once that most aft frame was up with the ridgeboard, Larry and I were able to quickly get the remaining 4 frames up, which completed the framing of the shed. As much as I don't enjoy not working on the boat, it's really nice to get this shed project finally done. You know, when we first started this project, we didn't know where the YouTube channel was going to go, if it was going to go anywhere. And now that folks like Total Boat and Interlux and All Grip are on board with us, you know, it's an opportunity for us to, you know, basically do a professional job. in finishing out this boat. And so professional jobs require professional environments for us to do this work in. And so, extending the shed and closing the boat so that no dust can get in or out, and protecting the environment as well, it'll just make for a much better finished product, which I'm very excited about.
One of our viewers sent us this surprise package. Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you so much.
It's a very thoughtful gift. All right, so the major construction work of this shed is done. There's a bunch of little details to finish, but for now, what we're focusing on is the tarp. It's a 20-foot wide by a 64-foot long shed. If you take the perimeter of the entire thing, it's actually more like 50 feet if you go from end to end. And so we've been looking for a tarp that's going to cover this thing. With the original shed, what I used was shrink wrap. And that stuff is great, except it's kind of one-time use only. It lasts a long time, which is really nice, but we would prefer to put a tarp on this thing that will be reusable, potentially. And even if we could find something used, that would be even better. So we're kind of putting it out there to anybody who has any ideas, any leads on a big white tarp that's at least 50 feet by 70 feet. We've looked at vinyl tarps, poly tarps, as long as it is white and waterproof. That is the most important part. We would even consider 2 tarps that would cover, half and half or something like that. And so if you have any ideas, we're open to anything and everything. Hopefully by next week, this thing will be, totally covered and waterproof. This is way different than how it was originally. This is what we've been working on for the past 2 summers, pretty much, between extending the transom, building the benches and the combings, and the doghouse. We're really, really happy with how it's turned out, but there's just a bunch of detail work left to do in here, which we'll be getting to this summer. One of the big projects we got done last summer was building the bowsprit. We also installed all these new carbon chain plates up on the foredeck for all of our head sails. I also removed and filled in both of these hatches. One of the biggest projects from last summer was building and installing these chain plates for the shrouds. Up here on the foredeck, some projects that I'm really excited about for this summer include doing the chain run from the bowsprit back to a new windlass locker. We're going to build door aids. We're going to install hatches. There's a couple more chain plates to do. Working on stanchions. There's a bunch of really fun kind of detail projects that we have coming up this summer. And don't worry, I'm not planning on keeping this Cyclops look too much longer. We're going to cut out the holes for the hatches here this summer as well. So let's head inside the boat. We're going to start forward in the stateroom and work our way aft. So now we're in the stateroom. This is a watertight bulkhead on the forward side of the stateroom. Forward of this is another watertight bulkhead and some more storage space up there up in the bow. We've already installed a couple chain plates up there, but this space is going to be used for storage. This is going to be wet storage area, so things like fenders, sails, paddle boards, other toys, lines, will all be stored in here from a hatch in the deck. There will also be the windlass is going to be as far back as we can, far aft, as well as the chain locker. So there's a lot of projects left to do up there, and we'll be doing them, most of them this summer. And what's really nice about this space is that it is wet storage that is outside the living space of our stateroom, which we're in now. All right, so this stateroom was one of the first projects we did on the interior of the boat like 2 winters ago. This is where Yanni and I will sleep. We'll have this little bench here. There'll be a bunch of big drawers underneath the bed. Hanging locker. As well as the big bed and a couple windows and hatch up in the deck. But this area has gone the furthest as far as painting goes. We've actually got finish primer on the walls, and so it is looking the most finished of any of the spaces. La Paz, why'd you come up here? Hey, you. So next on the tour is my workbench. This is the coolest spot in the boat. This will be where all the tools are stored, all the supplies for getting boat work done. But it'll also be just a really nice place to do any kind of projects. For the kiddo to work on school projects, for Yanni to work on videos. We're planning on having some kind of little stool here. Yeah, I think it turned out really cool. Now this is the head. I think Yanni and I are both very happy with how this has turned out. It's pretty spacious without being too big. It has its own standalone shower, and we are considering a composting toilet, which would be amidships. And there'll be a little sink and nice counter space and a mirror and everything. But as you can tell, that this space is in another stage of finished. We've sanded the fairing that was applied, and the next is to prime it and then sand it again and then paint it, along with all the other plumbing and lighting and everything else that has to be done in here. But it's looking pretty good so far. So I call these ring frames. These are kind of like partial bulkheads, and this is where the old chain plates were all attached to the boat. The new chain plates are here between these two bulkheads on the hull. I really like these ring frames, and they're important for the structure of the boat, especially around the rig. They're also really good for storage, I think. And so the plan is to build some drawers. Like I have these old drawers that were in, if you remember the table that was here, that I'm kind of testing out to see what it's like to have big drawers between this bigger space here. We'll probably have smaller drawers or cabinet space in this more narrow section. And then I'm thinking about putting a hanging locker in this more aft one, and maybe even some kind of drying system so we can put wet gear in there. If there's ventilation, maybe a little heater or something in there. I have ideas, and so that'll be a fun project, is building cabinet space, storage space in this area. This is a space that Yanni especially is very excited about, and this is the little tiny salon area for hanging out, maybe having a meal, watching movies. There's tons of great storage underneath these settees. I built these cabinets, and there'll be storage behind the settees. So this will be a really fun spot to just have a cup of tea and read a book or whatever. Across from the salon area, there's this is the beginning of the water tanks. This section specifically will be just a kind of a love seat style settee area. There'll be storage behind here. There's a window to cut out still, but we'll have some nice storage back there. But yeah, mostly it'll just be a settee right here. This space is going to be interesting. The Nav's desk is what I'm planning to build right here. So the desk area will be here. I'm actually going to build a little seat right here. And then behind the seat will be the switch panel. And so kind of the control center of the electrical and electronic side of the boat. And so it'll be a big cabinet and lots of access to the inside of it to do any kind of troubleshooting and installation that needs to happen. So this will probably be the first place I start working in next fall once we step back inside the boat. So we just finished this section of the boat, the galley area, and we're really happy with how it turned out with the U-shaped design. Don't forget that the floor is going to be higher here underneath the doghouse. But yeah, otherwise we're really happy with how it's turned out. So then this is the port side quarter berth. There'll be a big double bed in there. This will actually be the biggest bed in the boat. And it's over top of the fuel tank, which is a 150-gallon fuel tank. In both of the quarter berths, there's a nice little changing area with some hanging lockers and drawers and stuff. Yeah, this one will be the big bed. The other side will be for the sea berths. And then the port side quarter berth, very similar to the starboard side one, except for we built sea berths in this one. So there's basically bunk beds inside there. And it is in another stage of finish where it has been partially swept with fairing compound. So that is yet to be sanded. So this is the doghouse. This is probably our favorite part of the boat. This is where we'll be doing most of our living, both at sea and when we're at anchor. I punched out all of the old foam windows so we could see what it's like with all the light coming into the boat. And yeah, it's really fun to see how it's turning out. You'll notice that I can stand up in here. So we lowered the floor and we kept the benches the same height. And so you'll notice that my feet can't touch the sole here in the doghouse, but we do plan on installing footrests for people to rest their feet on, kind of like when they're sitting at a bar. This whole thing, this design was a practice and compromise because I didn't want the doghouse to be too tall because then it would look funny when you're looking at the lines of the boat. I needed the benches to be tall so that there could be room underneath them for people to, walk around or have headroom down there. And I also need room underneath here so that there's room enough for the motor and the batteries and stuff like that. So we're pretty happy with how it's turned out, and especially once the footrests will be in, it'll be an extremely comfortable place to hang out.
We hope you enjoyed the tour. Speaking as Matt's wife and documentarian of this project, after nearly 3 years, Matt still wakes up every day with what I call the Duracell twinkle in his eyes. This is a dream come true for him. As for me, it's a joy to document it for you all. Thank you for watching.
We have a few new Patreons to thank this week. First, thank you to Lou, who is a retired electrical engineer and cabinet maker. He's been boating a very long time and loves to sail. And thank you very much to Lou. Also, thank you to Tim and his family in New Zealand. Tim is into scuba diving. He's a leader of a Sea Scout club and hopes to get a boat one day that he can go cruising on with his family. So thank you very much to Tim. And also thank you to Peter. Thank you very much to everybody who's been supporting the channel. We really couldn't do this project without you guys. And we'll see you next week.